Showtime. Here we are. Blam Partners in the Circle. We're on the Facebook Live. And guys, today I am super, super excited. We have with us a former NFL football player. Now, if you don't know what it is, if you're based wherever in the world, in America, they play a form of rugby where they wear pads and helmets, and it's pretty brutal, right? They call it collision sports. Collision sports. I mean, that in itself is awesome. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome with us Cletus Coffey. And Cletus has transformed his life into becoming a bit of a coach, helping people, especially from the athletes background, to transform their life. And so he's going to do the Q&A with Grant over there. That way, I'm not sure. Am I in the middle here? I don't really know this, but so I'll be hiding in the background shortly. And yeah, great to have you here. Thank you very much, Cletus.
Brilliant.
Grant, Edward, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Blam community, hello. Good morning for me, maybe good afternoon or good evening for the rest of you, but thanks for the opportunity to be here. Appreciate it.
Awesome. What part of the world are you in at the moment, Cletus?
I come from the U.S. I'm in Seattle, Washington, West Coast.
Seattle, fantastic. So a bit chilly for you there, then.
Yeah, it is. It's been chilly and wet. You might be familiar with that.
It's a pleasure. We've got people who are all over the world that are Blam partners, so there'll be some that are your neck of the woods and then everywhere else. But it's a pleasure to have you because your niche, you got to remember, is a fascinating one, and it's something that we've actually touched on in the Blam partnership a while ago. We did an event where one of our Blam partners did an interview. It was actually a professional footballer, and he's still a professional footballer. And we did a live interview with them. And the bit that fascinated me, and the reason I've been really sort of excited to talk to you, is that the crossover from being, a high-performing athlete or sports person to then applying that mentality, that mindset, that skill set to business can be super effective. But I guess where you're coming from is that, well, every super performing athlete is not now an entrepreneur. And you've got the sort of the formula, if you like, to try and make those skills transferable. How did that start for you?
Well, I tell you, it was and has been quite a journey. And being an athlete and when I retired from sports, I was in my late 20s, 27, 28. And at that point, 85% of my life, I had been an athlete, starting at 4 or 5 years old. And, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I was a 2-sport athlete at my university, then went on to play professional football. It's all I knew. And there's a terminology called athlete identity foreclosure. And it was something I didn't know till later in life. And what I had done, and it's so common for a lot of athletes, is I had foreclosed on this identity. I was this thing. I loved it. I was having success. Everyone in my community, in my inner circle, knew me as the athlete. They didn't know me as the geometry expert or the biology, stud. I was the athlete. And it was validating. People, I was getting respect from others. I was getting interest. People wanted to get to know me and get to touch me, and not physically, but just be around. Like they knew, especially here in the U.S., probably in the UK and other countries, we love our athletes. And even in a local community, when you have success in that realm, it begins to attract things into your life that are very validating. That's who I was. And when it ended, there was no transition. There was no, hey, here's how we can ease out of sport and into something else. It was cut bait, done, and new game starts now. And It's something that so many former athletes struggle with. We've been built up, put on this podium, and then it's swiped out from underneath us, and we're plopped into a new game of life, not knowing how do the skills translate over. What can I take from this body of work that I've done for me 85% of my life and apply it? I didn't know how to do it. And thus Grant, for over a decade, I struggled, odds and ends jobs, trying to figure out like, who am I? And what am I good at? And what turns me on, gets me excited? I call it the high. Like, what gives me the same high in life, fulfillment, that sports went to?
And that must be such a common thing, from having that infrastructure, structure. You've got your team, you've got your coach, you've got all of the protection that your club or your facility gives you, and then all of a sudden you're on your own. Mm-hmm. That must be quite a shock.
It is. And you throw in instant feedback. I do something on the field and the crowd goes crazy. They cheer for me. I just make one play. Right? And now here I am in the next life, and I'm making, like, in my mind, I'm making plays. I'm doing the right thing. No one's cheering for me. No one's calling me saying, hey, great game. No one's calling me, asking me for tickets to the next game, or I saw you on TV. It's just the calls went quiet. The crowd went quiet. And here I am left alone, trying to navigate that next step without everything you just depicted there: team, coach, strategy, nutritionist, physical therapist. If I'm injured, like, all of that goes away.
Yeah.
And we're left to try to become the coach and the athlete. As athletes, we're good at just implementing. Like, give me the strategy, give me the playbook. I'm going to go implement. Tell me what to do. But now I have to create my own strategy. I got to be the coach, and I got to implement at the same time. And a lot of us athletes aren't accustomed to doing that.
The other thing that's just occurred to me is also, when you're an athlete, it's all about the physical, isn't it? And it's the fact that you are, you're using your body and you're getting the results. And then when you transition, there must be a psychological impact, because you're no longer as physically able as you were, and that must contribute to this whole thing all at once.
Well, I tell you what's interesting. It's imagine in business, you start from a business and you're learning and you're developing your craft, and all of a sudden it catches fire, and it's like the hockey stick. All of a sudden results go like this.
Yeah.
And we have the same thing in sport. We're starting young, we're learning our craft, we're understanding our bodies, we're improving, we're training, and then all of a sudden it just, for a lot of us, depending on what level you end up competing at, but we get the hockey stick. We're getting the results and the success, and then either one of two things happen. One, it starts to deteriorate, as you mentioned. Our body isn't performing, even though our minds are still there, and or we get the hockey stick performance, and then it's off. We either get injured. We are dropped from teams, or in school, we graduate and there is no next step for us because we don't go professional. It cuts off. And so it's a shock. We're not prepared for that next step.
It's funny when you were just sort of saying that story about, you get the gratification when you're an athlete where, you get your touchdown, you score a goal, whatever it is that you're doing, and everybody's cheering for you. And I just had this image in my head of me sat at my desk like this, making a sale. Yay! Looking around, there's no, it's just me.
For sure.
Yeah, that's it. It's a bit of a different mindset, isn't it? It really is. But I guess that's where you come in then. So it took you sort of 10 years to go through that process. How did you start to kind of come up with the idea, I can help other people?
Yeah, so this is the journey of an individual who identified with being an athlete. And the identity in itself is an ego play, right? The ego needs some form of identity to either protect itself or to feel, powerful. And so without that identity, I struggle with anxiety. I went into bouts of depression because I needed something else. And so I actually bounced around odds and ends jobs. And then I had this idea. I'm like, someone had turned me on to entrepreneurship. I thought, heck, I'll try it because nothing else is working. So I jumped in entrepreneurship. And for the first time, Grant, I felt like myself again. It was, I got to compete. I got to set goals. I got to put it on my shoulders. I got to take over and really drive something that was meaningful, that I felt was in alignment with who I was. Challenge was, I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family. I didn't know any entrepreneurs. I failed miserably 3 big whopping times. And I kept gravitating back towards entrepreneurship because it's where I felt like myself. And going and working in a cubicle and working in an office that was sedentary and just I need to be up, moving around, energy, meeting people, driving things, setting goals. And so that's where I said, okay, there's something there. I'm going to start to put the pieces of my life together. There's something there. And for the first time, and this was in a decade after I was retired from sport, when I retired, I said, I'm done with sport. I'm just going to go be a business person. I took my athletic career, and I stuffed it in a drawer. And it wasn't until 10 years later that I looked back and said, hold on a second. If success leaves clues, there's got to be something in that drawer that can help me in this next journey. So I opened the drawer, started to have the feelings again, starting to have the conversation of like, yeah, I was this athlete and there's something there. So I did my own self-awareness, personal development growth and piecing my life together because I was in some dark places, right? I lost my third business, broken, divorced, and going I had all these amazing results as an athlete, and my results post-sports have not been very successful. What's wrong with me? And so I had to get right with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I got to put the pieces together. So what I did I started, I took the courses, read the books, trained myself. I'm like, what can I do? Where can I make an impact? Because for me, income was great. I had 3 businesses where I chased money. Didn't work out. Where can I make impact? Where can I make the low-hanging fruit? What's easiest? Where can I make the most impact? And it's when I read the Blue Ocean Strategy book.
Oh, really?
And I thought, God, and I had been playing in red oceans. I've been trying to do things in insurance and finances and so forth. Where is the blue ocean existing? And that's where I'm looking at the athletic space and realizing that mental health, we're just scratching the surface in mental health, but yet there's no transition. And anything that was in the transition space for athletes was all in, hey, here's how to write a resume. Here's how to get an internship. Here's how to get a job. But I didn't align with just writing a resume and going into a job. I had this entrepreneur mindset and I knew I wasn't alone. So I said, all right, I'm going to niche down. And basically, right, we in business, the easiest thing to do is to serve people like yourself. So where can I best serve people on my journey in a blue ocean? Oh my goodness, it's this world of transition. So that's what launched me into, okay, I'm going to help people like myself who are stuck, struggling, or settling for less than we know we're capable of. And I say this to athletes all the time. Would you have gotten into sport to say, hey, I'm going to train my butt off just to sit on the sidelines? Or I'm going to, train my butt off and just not make the team? No, you're not going to go into to be mediocre. You're going to go into to reach your highest potential, to whatever that looks like, whatever level. So why in business? Why in life outside of sports are we settling for, hey, I've got the job, I have the dog, I have the family, I got the house, like all is good, but we walk in the door utterly unfulfilled? It's not acceptable to me for my life. And I know athletes aren't accepting that either because there's a fire in our belly and it's not being extinguished, or we're not putting it anywhere. So that's where I said, okay, look, I want to tap into that athlete DNA, that athlete fire, and get more athletes reaching their highest potential in life after sports.
And that means that they can achieve the success in entrepreneurial endeavors. Exactly. In the same way. So the bit that interests me, and I've looked at some of your stuff, and I think this is common through all people. There's lots of people that want to be an entrepreneur. There's lots of people that have got the desire to run their own business, but they're not quite sure what they should be doing. And you talk about it in your work. You talk about you've got to find that thing that you're passionate about. How do you help a sort of a budding entrepreneur that was an athlete find their passion? Have you got any tips?
Absolutely. And this is the foundation of all my work, primarily because my first business venture, I went into it to chase the money and got the investors, started the company, had the office space, had my corner office. And once I had to actually do the work, I liked the entrepreneurial part. I didn't like the work part because it didn't excite me. It was in commercial finance. And during the heyday, especially here in the U.S. of the real estate market, I'm going, yeah, let's chase the money. And I didn't like the paperwork. I didn't like having the conversation. It just didn't fulfill me. Even though money started coming in, I'm going, what's going on? Ironically, I got bailed out during the crash of 2009, where I lost my business, and it was the biggest blessing. But what I reflected on is, what can I want to be able to do something I align with, that I'm passionate about, because I had the sense that this would be of greater success, not only for myself, but those that I work with. So what I do is it's a whole self-awareness, basically worksheet that I go through with everyone from a foundational level, is trying to understand, okay, first and foremost, what gets you excited? What turns you on, that gives you that, hey, look, I want to get up and get after the day. And when the day ends, like, we're frustrated because we just wish we had more hours to the day, because we really wanted to get this going. Like, what is that? That's the big thing. The second thing is, what do other people say about you? What do other people say you're good at? What do other people recognize that is a skill set of yours? And as athletes, we oftentimes are not vulnerable enough to ask other people, hey, what am I good at? Or what am I not good at? Because we may be thinking we got this nailed, and the market feedback is saying, no, that's not your strength. I also, another step is asking, getting a sense of what others come to ask us for advice on. So I thought I was this business finance type guy, and yet everyone in my inner circle was coming to ask me about health, fitness, because I've continued to maintain my body and my fitness level and training. They asked me about nutrition. They were coming to ask me about that type of stuff. And I kind of just, well, that's just, okay, great. That's just what I do. Not realizing that that's how people saw me. That's what I was giving off into the world, was that energy. There's something there. And so we have to, again, tie into those clues. What do people ask us for advice on? What does the marketplace say we're good at or what we're not good at? Asking others in our circle, like, hey, what do you think is my best skill set? What do you think I'm good at? Taking this information and start to put it together. So really, again, getting clarity on what you're good at, what do others think you're good at, asking the marketplace, those relevant questions, and then taking note on what do people come to me for advice on.
Yeah, and that really starts to drill down, because I guess with the people that you work with, do you find that a lot of them are a little bit unsure about what they should be doing? Is that a common scenario?
It's a very common scenario, and it's they're saying, well, gosh, I've been doing this for however many years, and it seems to be okay, or I have no idea, Cletus. I've got 10 things I want to do, 10 things I'm passionate about. Which one should I pick? And again, we have to ask these clarifying questions to help narrow in on that narrow that focus. As entrepreneurs, of course, we've got 10 things on our plate, but we got to narrow in and find that one thing that is low-hanging fruit. What is easy and effortless? As an athlete, we stepped into our sport. For example, I played American football. For me to step onto a baseball diamond, I'm out of my element. So what is easy? What is low-hanging fruit for you in business that you can do with little effort? Let's not make this an uphill climb. Let's make this a downhill run. So, what are you good at? Starting to figure out those things to help narrow down the niche and what we're most passionate about.
So we've got a question, and this one's from Ash. He's based in Toronto, Canada. What do you do to stay consistent, and what helps you to be persistent with your goals, keeps you persistent with your goals? So consistency and persistence is a key here. How do you maintain that? Yeah,
Ash, great to hear from you. I tell you, I spent a little time in Saskatchewan in the Canadian Football League, so a Canadian friend there. Stay consistent. So consistency is the key. And that's the thing that us as athletes really have done a good job through our sporting lives to create. We're consistent. We'll get up at 6 a.m. We'll do the training. We'll get the workouts in. We'll make sure we're getting nutrition in to help fuel our body. We have this level of consistency that we're familiar with. What I have done is, again, I'm regimented when it comes to me as an athlete. I used to track my calories going in. I'm a smaller in stature. I'm 6 feet tall, but I'm light. And in order for me to play, I had to keep weight on. So I had to constantly be eating. So I had eating schedules. I had to track my calories. I knew my workouts. I got them in. I was very consistent, and the results showed. Once I got into life after, I kind of forgot about that. I didn't realize that was actually a part of life. And so my schedule is a huge, I have 3 children. So, managing children, getting them to school and so forth is important. But the biggest challenge for me is, that I found that I've been able to push past is simply this, because especially came to when I launched my podcast, Grant, launched my YouTube channel. It's all about consistency with this stuff, creating content. You got to be consistent. Is addressing what is uncomfortable and what's the biggest fear in your way, and whatever that is, just walking straight through that has helped me with my consistency, because it's generally what's holding us back is some sort of fear or getting uncomfortable. That's the biggest challenge. I mean, and I'll put it in a sporting term. In sport, you generally have the championship teams, the elite teams, and you have the teams that are at the bottom of the barrel. They're generally year after year winning a couple games, and everyone else is beautifully mediocre. What's the difference? All these teams are okay with mediocrity. I'm not. Those that are pushing past mediocrity into elite are willing to do something uncomfortable. And so for me, is pushing my barriers of my fears and my uncomfortableness, and just saying, all right, hey, I'm going to film this video really quick and just putting it out on YouTube, and not caring and have a care in the world and where it's going to go. But I know I need to be consistent. So consistency, trumps my comfortableness. My consistency trumps my fears. And it's, again, it requires the persistence of facing that every single day with a fire. And I'll end the question with this: to have something worth fighting for. When you have something that's worth fighting for, you are going to be consistent, man. It's whether it's family, business, sporting, whatever. When you find something that's worth fighting for, when you do it, man, that consistency is going to come with such ease and grace.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's where goal setting and, making sure you know what your why is, all of these things. I mean, it just strikes me that when you look at the way athletes and teams are organized, those top teams that you talk about, they're successful for a reason. And it's not just because they've got the best players. It's the way that they apply themselves, the tactics, all these consistent and persistent things that they do, the team spirit, the mindset. There's so many metaphors and analogies that super successful teams apply that can be transferable into the business world. And I think that's why it's such a fascinating niche that you're in, because you guys, you athletes, will have experienced that, but it's not a natural, state of mind just to take it with you. And so you're there to sort of say, remember, guys, this is what it was like when you were a high performer. We've now got to use that but put it into a different context. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It makes perfect
absolutely.
sense. I did wonder, and I think you may have touched on this. Do you work with veterans as well?
Oh, Grant, you're connecting the dots. It's every week, consistently, someone asks me about the military and veterans.
Right.
And you're right. It's very much transferable. They're going through a lot of similar challenges, oftentimes much greater challenges than athletes have gone through. So what I'm actually building as well, it's kind of the next brand that's coming up under my company, is for the veterans of our militaries.
That's
so because a lot of this absolutely translates over. So yes,
I can see that. Yeah,
in the pipeline.
It's a lot of similarities, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Veterans, when they're in the military, they're high performers. They're very much told what to do, how to do it. They get results. There is no failure allowed. And I've worked with ex-forces companies myself as well. And I think it's an honourable thing to be involved in, isn't it? Helping the ex-military guys.
Absolutely.
We got another picture. Another question in. What was your greatest fear that you broke through? Good question from Peter.
Yeah, Peter, great.
South Africa.
Peter, great. Thanks for chiming in. Yes, there's been various fears that I've had to face in myself. One of the biggest ones is not my biggest one, because I'm going to address that in a second, but building up to that, as an athlete, oftentimes, in order for us to get on the field, or on the court or on the track or in the pool, there is this level of perfectionism. We have to be able to get out there and perform. And for a lot of us, if we didn't perform to perfection, we were pulled out of games. We were yelled at. We were chastised, belittled, demeaned by coaching, parents, etc. And it still happens today. I mean, I work with coaches and teams along this level to help shift that culture. But it's a reality for a lot of us athletes. So we had to be perfection for fear of being pulled out, for fear of not getting an opportunity to play again, for fear of being laughed at, yelled at, etc. So we have then I transitioned over into sport with that desire to be perfection. So I sat for years behind a computer, working on websites, working on my message, working on and trying to get it right before I launched it. And this, the company that I officially launched now is, I started it back in 2017. I'm going, I can't do this again. I've tried to be a perfection in the past. It's not working. But the biggest fear, what that led to is the biggest fear that I had for myself was the end of the day. That when my life on this organic floating rock in the middle of this universe, when my life comes to an end here, that I'm looking in the mirror and saying to myself, gosh, I really wish I would have chased that dream. I really wish I would have tried on exploring what I was capable of. I really wish I would have done X, Y, and Z in my life. And for me personally, starting, as you all know, starting a business can be scary. It is scary. It's frightening. There's a lot of unknowns. I didn't want to look in the mirror at the end of my life and say, gosh, I really wish I would have just tried to give it my all. So that fear I broke through and said, I don't care what happens. I have a vision, I have a passion, and I have a community that I want to impact and serve. And it doesn't matter. I'm going to give it my all, and the results will take care of themselves.
That's a great answer. Yeah, I know Peter actually was an athlete himself. He's now a Blam partner, and I've had the chat with him way before I knew you were coming on about the sort of transferable skills about being a high performer in the sports world, and then and we all when we've been super successful on the field, the pitch, or wherever it is, and then we're not getting those results that we want in our business, that can be a real shock to the system. And I think that comes back to that previous question about where Ash asked about perseverance and consistency, because it's almost like we've got to retrain. And it doesn't necessarily we're going to hit the heights that we hit in sport straight away, but with that consistency, that perseverance, we know it is attainable. And we've got a lifetime to do it as well, because we're not relying on our fitness and our bodies to do it. we've got this now, haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, we're nearly coming to the end. There's a couple more questions from Shelley. She's asking about secret mental exercise, but I quickly wanted to sort of mention Ash. She says, thank you so much for the answers. Great answer. I guess the answer to my question about the key to consistency is actually overcoming his fears.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it doesn't have to be perfect, Ash. It doesn't have to be perfect. Good is good enough, which is one of Grant's sayings. And I think we all need help with being persistent, but that's why there is a schedule. That's why you have a calendar. That's why you do book it in. And one of my questions on that was, you didn't have any choice but to turn up, because one of the first things to get you in the team is to actually turn up. Because if you didn't turn up, you got poor attendance, you weren't going to get selected anyway. You could be the greatest player, but if you didn't turn up for training, you don't get selected. So you have to turn up.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate, Ash, that you keep turning up, and Peter and Shelley and all the others that come consistently every single week. That's what it's all about. You turn up because, you'll get there.
Yeah. Any just to finish off, any secret mental exercises you want to share with us?
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. I love it. Consider this. Excuse me. As athletes, we are taught to focus on the scoreboard, right? Think about it. If any of you who have played sports as a youth or at some point, when you walk in the door from a game or a match or a race, what's the first question someone asks you?
How'd you do?
Did you win? Did you lose? And so from a very early on, we are taught to judge ourselves based on the scoreboard, something we cannot control. We cannot control the outcome, the scoreboard. What we can control is our attitude, our effort, and our response. That's it. And so athletes and a lot of human beings are so focused on the scoreboard. When we look at business, we're focused on the scoreboard. Did I win today? Did I make money? Did I not make money? I didn't make money. Oh, I'm the worst entrepreneur in the world. I made money. Gosh, I'm doing something amazing. We ebbs and flows. And so one of the mental exercises that's helped me is I have my journal every morning, and I put, number one, my affirmations. I'm all about knowing this. It's not about wishing, hoping, praying. No, it's knowing this. I know this to be true. I know I am going to achieve this result, or I'm already achieving it. So even though it hasn't manifested yet, I use the knowingness mentality, and I write that down, and I look at it and I'm like, okay, that is not real right now, but it is. That is who I am, becoming that person, number one. And number two, because the scoreboard oftentimes dominates our life and how we judge ourselves, I scratch the scoreboard and I write the small little effort victories that I had that particular, the previous day or that day. So writing down the small things like, hey, you know what? I made the call. I turned up. I didn't get the sale or it didn't come through, but I showed up. That's positive. And that really shifts our mentality of how we approach each and every day, with an attitude that's going to get us what we want, with the effort, knowing that the outcomes will take care of themselves, and responding in a way, whether things are high or they're low, in a way that's going to get us the outcomes that we're looking for. Those are the things we can control. That helps me with my mental.
That's awesome.
That's an awesome way to look at it. And thank you. That's such a good closer as well. So thank you very much, Cletus. Tell us quickly, I'm going to drop the links in the feed, in the chat as well, and in the description below when we publish this on YouTube. But tell us where we can find you and what we can download, your Instagram handle. How can we connect?
Yeah, I'm at Cletus Coffey on all social channels, Cletus Coffey. CletusCoffey.com is my website. If you want to get started on this journey, just go to CletusCoffey.com/playbook. That'll get you through some of the self-awareness steps that we talked about earlier. That can help get you in the process and in our community and starting to conversate. So thank you all pretty much for everything, the opportunity to be here and join you. And thank you all for listening.
It's been great.
Great questions.
Thank you very much, Cletus. And if you've been watching us, this has been the Blam Partners InnerCircle. We go live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. with our community. We publish these sessions later on. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much. Cletus, stick around. Yeah, well, we close off.
Thanks, Cletus. Cheers.